Dr. Tulenko. She's CEO of Corvus Health. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So let's start with these partnerships that we're seeing between Sanofi, Johnson & Johnson, and the U.S. government. Is that a sign of things to come?
I think it is. I think that as the need to develop vaccines more rapidly becomes more frequent, you'll see different groups teaming up because governments can relax the regulations a bit and provide funding, and the companies provide the know-how and the laboratories. And you'll also see groups like CEPI, which is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, which is a public-private partnership. They're doing a lot of funding of vaccines. So you'll see a lot more of that in the future as well.
So then people might be wondering, why can't the government just take over development and production of vaccines itself?
There are basically two governments that would have that capacity. That would be the U.S. because they have their NIH and CDC labs, and China with their Ministry of Health labs. However, most other countries don't have the type of laboratory capacity, research laboratory capacity, to develop these very sophisticated immunizations. So because of that, it really is going to have to be reliant on the private sector to develop new vaccines.
And obviously, in the private sector, these are for-profit companies. And in recent years, the development of vaccines have been driven by the profit motive. Is there another way to incentivize companies to develop vaccines?
So there are quite a number of ways to incentivize. One, of course, is money, giving them grants to develop the vaccine. Another incentive is something called advanced market commitments, where a government or another purchaser makes an agreement to buy an effective vaccine at a certain price and a certain number of doses. And then other mechanisms include the Defense Production Act and where government can force a company to produce a drug or a vaccine. And then the final mechanism is called compulsory licensing. This was used heavily during the war on HIV/AIDS, where drugs that were still on patent could be forced to be made generically and be made more cost effectively. And we're already seeing calls for that in the COVID outbreak.
Now, there does always seem to be this moral backlash in some cases about companies profiting from developing vaccines. But isn't it only right that the companies or individuals who have come up with these drugs, have invested all this money and time and resources, shouldn't they get some sort of material reward?
So that's the dilemma, because even if a company receives money from a government to develop a vaccine, they're diverting staff away from other projects, other projects that potentially could have been more profitable. So, we do want companies to recoup their costs and be able to grow and expand. And there are different mechanisms to make vaccines more affordable. There's a concept called differential pricing. We charge different prices for vaccines or drugs in different markets. So for example, maybe an effective COVID vaccine might cost $500 in the US, but in a low-income country might cost $25, so that the profit can actually be made in the wealthy country, and the vaccine is sold at cost or below cost in the poorer countries. But it's important in that system to make sure that vaccine then doesn't get sold back to the wealthy countries through the black market. We have seen that with some drugs.
Now, you've tapped on speed, but let's also talk about time. Is the multi-year process the needed span of time for a vaccine's development, or are there strategies to speed up the research, development, and testing phases, especially for COVID-19?
So there are several strategies to speed it up. One, frankly, is just more money, so you can put more resources, and also so that companies can try more innovative techniques that they wouldn't have tried if they had less funding. In addition, regulatory authorities can relax the regulations a little bit, and also with some of the new viral vaccines. For example, Inovio and NIH actually started a vaccine trial March 16th. So really, barely 2 months after the discovery of the virus, and they were able to skip animal testing. So I actually think that probably in about 6 to 8 months, we'll see trials going out to health workers. So usually the first set of volunteers are people like your reporter interviewed, just regular people who want to do good and are willing to have the vaccine first.
Right.
But as we've seen with the Ebola vaccine, since we know health workers are most at risk, they're often more willing to participate in the second round of vaccine testing. But I think we probably won't see the vaccine for the general public for a year or more.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Tulenko there, CEO of Corvus Health.